Modern day relationships have changed so significantly from the classic era that valued traditional family dynamics. Relationships have evolved and transitioned to meet the sophisticated needs that people experience today. Relationships Unloaded talks about the real, raw, and difficult aspects of relationships. Totally uncensored, slightly comical, but totally real. Hosted by New Jersey's favorite couples therapist, Sonia Singh. Hey everybody, thank you for listening. You're tuning into Relationships Unloaded. And you're listening to your host, Sonia Singh, New Jersey's favorite couples therapist. And I am here with Sarah Phillips, LCSW.
Hey, Sonia.
So she's going to be our special guest today, and we have a lot of interesting things in store for you in today's episode. We're going to be talking about dating apps. So dating apps have, made a significant segue into really kind of revolutionizing the way that people date today. Yes. And the way that people meet. So, based on a lot of feedback that I got through the Relationships Unloaded community, which is on Facebook. If you're not following it, make sure that you go to Relationships Unloaded on Facebook. Follow, like. Also, the Relationships Unloaded community, also on Facebook. The community is a place where, everybody that does participate in the community, is able to pretty much, have questions answered about their own dating or relationship trials and tribulations. And, everything's confidential within the group. It is a private group. So follow if you're interested. But based on some polls that I've done and some independent research that I've done in the group, online dating has been something that has come up over and over again because, there's a lot of pros to online dating, but there's a lot of cons to online dating. And in today's show, we're going to be talking about a little bit of both. Now, being that online dating has significantly changed the way that people interact and, get through the getting to know you phase, we thought that, this show will provide some insight into some of the things that I've learned, some personal experiences as well. And then I have Sarah here to kind of, share her own insight on the dating app revolution.
Absolutely. Can't wait to talk about it. This is something that's been around for a while, but it's become so much more popular in the past couple of years. And, I think we'd be remiss to talk about relationships and not go into the prevalence of online dating and using apps, being that seems to be one of the more popular ways to meet people at this point.
Yeah, I mean, from some of the research that we've done together, actually, one of the things that I came across, and I found this, really, really significant. I wanted to share. Back in 2014, there was a 43% approval rate on online dating. Since then, that approval rate has increased to 59%. So 59% of Americans feel like online dating is a great way or a good way or okay way to meet people. So with that being said, 59% is the majority of, obviously the majority of our dating population. So, one of the things I just wanted to, bring up first is to kind of talk about the evolution of online dating. Mm-hmm. So, Sarah.
Sure.
What are your first memories about online dating? How far back does that go?
So, this is a throwback for sure. So when I first started really learning about the online dating thing, that was back when like MySpace and Black
Mhm,
Planet
mhm,
and Mihente and all of those.
mhm,
And
mhm.
yes, I had a profile on every single one of those.
I did too. I did too.
And I think when I first started using those profiles, it was, those were like the primitive social medias. And it wasn't really my intention when I first got on them to use them as dating sites or dating apps. Well, they weren't apps at the time, they were sites. Um, but very quickly it became apparent that that's what people use them for. And so, every day I would log into my Black Planet and my Mihente and have like all these notes from people who,
Mhm.
they wanted to talk. And um, that was really my first experience with, I guess, what we would call now online dating. Back then I think it was really just considered the social media sites, like for networking and news and stuff like that. But people, there was a need, there was a need, there was a desire, there was a demand, and so people kind of made it what they wanted it to be, which was a place to seek out relationships.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think going all the way back, I could go back to AOL chat rooms.
Oh my God, of course. I can't believe I
Age,
forgot
sex,
that.
location,
ASL,
right?
yes.
So that's how far it goes back. I just, I
Yes.
remember getting these CDs and getting I don't know how many free minutes, just 600 free minutes of AOL. And
Yes.
um, that's how it kind of started off,
Okay,
right?
so far
So
back, I completely forgot about that.
dial up days.
Oh my
Dial
God.
up days. And that is like before pics, right?
Yep.
Before picture phones, right? Camera
Yep.
phones. Where we either had to mail or find a way
Yes.
to scan a picture,
Oh
right,
my
to email
God.
somebody. And, we had Hotmail and we had crazy
Mm-hmm.
just names back then. I think interesting. So, no judgments here. I mean, I was a kid, but I had this screen name and it was called Hot Chick Like Whoa. And I don't know. I don't know. I listened to a lot of hip hop when I was growing up, so I don't know where I got that from. But yeah, so I actually remember, having a long distance relationship with somebody that lived in DC that was in college, and I
Okay.
was like in eighth grade, and he
Oh
was a
God.
freshman in college.
Oh no.
And all we did was talk on the phone. We met in a chat room, and then we just continued to get to know each other. And, these were the early stages of what has transformed today into being, what we see as profiles, right? That profiles where, you have, options to really kind of look for certain qualities and characteristics with
Right.
the people that you're seeking.
Mm-hmm.
It was just kind of like a free for all on the chat rooms because you didn't know who you were contacting. You would get messages, you would be in a group chat, you would say, hey, or people would just talk and people would
Right.
send you IMs and you would kind of, I had the AOL Instant Messenger,
Oh
and
my God.
people would just, yeah,
You're
long
taking it
list.
so back.
I
I
know.
know.
It's like,
I
it's a,
remember all this.
yeah, and I just remember, having met a lot of people through those chat rooms, but at that time, because of the age I was during that era,
Mm-hmm.
I was too young to actually go date
Right.
these people.
Right.
However, even at like 14 years old, I was able to foster some type of relationship
Yeah.
with these people, even though it was virtual and it was through technology still back then because it was through the phone. We would call each
Mm-hmm.
other. Um, I remember one time it was a guy that, for 2 years, like we always used to talk. And once again, he
Yeah.
lived in DC. I was in Jersey. He used to send me pictures of him in college. Like we were friends. And so, this is like a real, like it's different, but
Mm-hmm.
it was a relationship of its own, of its own sort. So, that evolved, and then I remember being in high school and like you mentioned, the Black Planet and having the pages, and
Oh my God.
me and my friends actually used to compete to see who would have the better pages and who would have like hotter graphics. We
The
used to
most
steal
comments.
HTML. Yeah, we used to steal people's like HTML formulas
Oh
and come up with the
gosh.
coolest
Yes.
pages
Yes.
to become more, and this is a theme, right? To make our pages be more attractive.
Right.
And we
Right.
also had our pictures up there.
Right.
So,
let's be real. It's attention seeking. You know,
It
like
was.
that's really, and that's what a lot of these online dating and just sort of social media in general. I mean, it's stroking our egos, and whoever kind of came up with this idea way back then in the Stone Ages, like, they struck gold because they knew, you know, this is what everybody wants to be wanted and desired, and everybody wants compliments, and everybody wants the likes on their pictures, and, you know, they want the IMs and the messages and the DMs and all that stuff, and, you know, we fed right into it, and it was a really natural and very quick progression, I think, from those days of the AOL chat rooms to what became, you know, the first kind of social media sites that we've been talking about. It happened very fast. And took off.
Right. And that kind of started the evolution of, you know, of technology,
Yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Taking over and having control over how we date.
Yeah.
Those were the beginnings, right?
Yeah.
So a lot of people back then weren't doing it, because I had friends that weren't, you know, online meeting anybody, that weren't online at all.
Mm-hmm.
I think about my sister. My sister she was very kind of social and active, and she doesn't know what any of that is like. However, you know, there are a lot of us that remember that era, that remember the beginnings.
Yeah.
I know personally myself on those sites, like, I've met people, random messages, you know, when I was a teenager, and then MySpace came. I met people off of MySpace.
Mm-hmm.
Then I took a hiatus, because then I was in a 7-year relationship. And coming out of that relationship, being in my late 20s,
it was a whole new world.
It was a whole new dating world.
You just did a bid, came out to a whole new everything.
Yeah, I did. It felt like I did a bid, but that's a conversation for another podcast. Yes. But it was a whole new era. Like, it's like dating totally changed, and I remember, you know, stepping into the dating, you know, world, and I think at that time I was 28 years old. Mm-hmm. So the first time that I ever, you know, really began to, you know, put myself out, right, as a single woman, was at 28 years old. Okay. And for a professional woman at 28 years old that's very busy, there was a lot of convenience.
It fit. It was a good
fit. It fit. And then it was fun, and it was adventurous, and it was exciting. You know, there are a lot of people that I connected with, you know, through a lot of these apps that I wouldn't have been able to connect with otherwise. So that's one of the pros about online dating, is that, you know, you're able to connect with people that, you know, you might not be able to run into, you know, socially, you know, somewhere. Also, the fact, you know, it's like I had certain requirements for what, you know, the type of person that I was willing to, you know, give my time to, right? Even if it was a conversation or, you know, a date. You know, I know that I looked for a certain type of person that I could connect with on different levels. And on dating apps, you're able to really identify, you know, okay, well, if you do a search, simple search, I want someone, it's kind of like you could build a man. I'm looking for a man that has, well, you know, I'm an educated woman, so I like, you know, my men to be intellectual. Not saying that you can't be intellectual if you don't have degrees. However, let me just make sure you have a master's or above, right? Or, you know, I'm 5'5.5", so I definitely don't want to deal with somebody that is shorter than me when I wear heels. So 5'8" and above, right? So that, but then it gets more.
You set some parameters.
Yeah, it gets more complicated, because hobbies and physical features and kids. Someone that has kids, doesn't have kids, wants kids, doesn't want kids, unsure. Smoking, do you smoke, do you not smoke? Socially, drinking, socially, do you not drink? And it just goes on and on and on. There's so many preferences that you could identify. So once again, there's so much, like, it kind of eliminates a lot of things that you would have to deal with, like a lot of barriers that you would have to deal with before, because if you met somebody out socially, you don't know who you're meeting.
Right.
Right? Where it's like you can kind of narrow down your search.
Without even having a conversation.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Right.
It's funny the things that you were mentioning, because in the research that we were doing, before the show, we also found out that, the kind of like the three things that you just mentioned are the things that, for men specifically, they're more likely to lie about, which is the age, the height, and the income. So you're able to sort through these
long side
options, but you don't even know. You still don't know what you're dealing with. Just as a quick fact, the thing that women most lie about is their weight, physical build, and age. So it's not just men that are out here lying, but you're absolutely right. It's a way to sort of filter or screen candidates, because that's really what we're doing. We're screening candidates, to see if we want to date them, and it's a way to just sort of, filter it out right off the bat. If you know that there are some certain things that are non-negotiables for you, you can sort of just cut to the chase and get rid of that, and not even waste your time.
Yep. Presentation means a lot, especially on these dating apps. Pictures obviously hold a lot of value. People want to see pictures, right? So, like, I know from a female perspective, and there's two females here, and we're talking about dating apps. Listen, it's not. Guys know that most of the times, right? Guys pursue women. So we will have a lot of messages in our inboxes. Like, how do you deal with that? Because I think that the guys that are listening will benefit from understanding from a female perspective how we handle the influx of requests and messages, especially when you're an attractive woman, right? Because obviously when you're an attractive woman and you might appeal, I mean, you're appealing to a lot of men, you're gonna get a lot more messages. And so, like, how do you handle that? What do you do with that?
So, I think what's interesting is that it's sort of, people are sort of setting up boundaries right from the get-go. You can see in people's profiles, like, sort of right off the bat, people will list rules, like, please don't just send me a hi, or else I'm not going to answer you, or please don't, they want to set up, because imagine if you wake up in the morning and check your messages and you have 37 men in your inbox, and all they have to offer you is just a hi, which is by the way, it's a very natural conversation starter. Like, I wouldn't expect anything otherwise. But, when you're trying to filter through, it's like kind of like a job interview, like we were mentioning before. It's an interview process. And so if you're coming at me with just something basic as hello, you better follow it up with something that's going to keep my attention, because if not, I'm going to keep it moving because I got 37 more right after
Exactly. Right. And, when you're on these dating apps as women, right, like you said, you want to stay engaged. Absolutely. You want something to pique your interest.
Absolutely.
One of the things, and I will say, guys, do not serial message the same message.
Oh my God.
I've gotten that, and it's like sad that there are men that they don't even know who they're serial. They don't even keep track of it, because they'll send you multiple messages of the same kind, the same phrase. I'm like, and this was last week. You'd even type something new up. You're just copying, pasting, and contacting random women. But I will say this: men do have it a lot. It's harder for men because they do have to, if they find something that they're interested in. They find something that they're interested in, right? They have to find a way to be able to seem appealing to that woman. So they have to take time out. But then there's no guarantee that they'll ever hear back from this person. Right? So it's difficult for them. It's a risk. You put yourself out there. You make yourself vulnerable, to see if you have a chance with a woman. If you were to do it, in public, if you were to walk up to a woman in public, you deal with the same risk.
It's a bigger risk, I think.
in public.
For sure, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, we were talking about this before the show also, that, part of the reason why we prefer the online dating scene or prefer to use apps and stuff is because, personally, if you come and approach me, outside in the grocery store, I'm not there looking for somebody. I'm going to look at you kind of crazy. Like, I might smile and say hello, but you're not getting my number. I don't think I've ever in life given my number out to somebody I met on the street or in the grocery store or in the club. Like, that's not, I don't take people seriously when they approach me outside, which is crazy because that's real life, but that's just not my personality. So these apps make it blunts the rejection a little bit. I can think, because face-to-face rejection is going to hurt a lot more than just somebody not responding to a message.
You make sorry to cut you off, but you said something that just made me really think about, I guess, a negative that comes out of that, right? Because it's easier to handle rejection when you're not face to face somebody.
Absolutely.
However, a lot of guys, also get stronger balls when they're when they don't have to be face to face, because
dick pics.
We're talking dick pics. We're talking about inappropriate comments.
Absolutely.
We're talking about messages that say, "Oh, nice boobs." Would you see me in public and say nice boobs? I'm pretty sure not. Maybe to yourself, but you're not gonna come up to me because you'll get
I've had
smacked.
I've had some pretty bold approaches by men in my day, but for the most part, you're right. Yeah, people, they're not coming out their mouth sideways when they approach you.
Yeah.
Outside.
One thing that we didn't talk about also is really kind of understanding people's intentions when you meet them online, which you could also identify in a profile, but people make profiles and I don't think they're really kind of they don't really always stick true to the values of what they're saying in their profile, right? So you have to spend the time to get to know them. Somebody might say, "Hey, I'm looking for something serious," and then talk to you and say, "Hey, I'm just looking for fun."
Yeah.
So
yeah, you have to really kind of weed through it and really kind of figure out what people are looking for and kind of see their intentions. Absolutely. So
Sarah just showed me. Now, what app is this?
Do you know? I think it was Plenty of Fish.
Plenty of Fish.
But I'm not even sure.
It's funny. Someone on the relation.
OkCupid.
Cupid. Okay. So, when there are some men that get rejected, and when they get rejected, they get very disrespectful. Guys will be like that in person. However, it says a lot about this man's character and who he is, and it says a lot. I mean, women, pay attention to these signs, because if someone's willing to, or if someone's going to disrespect you online on a dating app for not getting back to them,
imagine what they would do in person.
Yeah, but that person. When I look at that person, and this is a therapist at me, I see much more, right? I'm looking underneath. I'm looking at the feelings and the emotions. What did that response mean to him? That
the lack of response.
Right. The lack of response mean to him, where obviously it impacted his self-esteem, or it disorientated him enough where he felt as though he wanted to come back and attack you, right, in a disrespectful way for not responding.
When I used to work with kids, working in a school, especially with like middle school, high school age kids, this is a big kind of taking jabs at each other, starting rumors, talking about each other behind their backs as the theme, which unfortunately also spreads into adulthood in a lot of situations too. But I used to always tell them, if somebody's saying something bad about you, it has nothing to do with you. It's either they feel bad about themselves and are trying to make themselves feel better, or they're kind of expressing some other kind of feeling of rejection or anger or sadness. Is never a reflection on you when somebody says something bad to you or about you, if you haven't done anything.
Right.
So that just says he's not feeling good about himself because he couldn't handle somebody just not responding to him.
And, when I see a situation like that, you showed me that message, you know, someone like that, what is their intent for going online and try to meet somebody? Right, because a lot of people, and we spoke about this earlier, a lot of people are looking for the boost in ego, the the confidence booster, right? Because of course, when you're engaging with people and you're having positive conversations, and it makes you feel good, right? You start to experience these positive emotions, and people are kind of seeking that gratification out of these dating apps. That does that for people. So I'm sorry you had to go through that. I would have laughed at that. I would have seen it. I'm like, oh, so you're mad because I didn't send you a message.
I took a screenshot, and you know how long ago that was from? I mean, I still have it in my phone because it was just a funny, and I showed people, and I was laughing about it.
And the thing is, he tried to disrespect you physically. However, I'm pretty sure.
Message, you were talking about, hey, sexy. So
exactly, and yeah.
But women go through this, and I'm sure men go through it too. I'm not a man, so I don't know. And, in the conversations I've had with people have been primarily with women. But the kinds of disrespect and craziness, like you were saying, because people get bold behind their computer screens, behind their keyboards. They get real, real bold and will say some crazy, crazy stuff. And the kinds of messages, I mean, you can follow them on Instagram, like the things... That's online dating and Tinder stories and Tinder nightmares and all these things that you can follow on Instagram, where the messages that people send, you just have to wonder, like, what is going on? Like, I mean, it's really crazy. Now, luckily, personally, I haven't had to deal with much of that.
The crazy thing about being, all right, so being on these dating apps, right? You are putting yourself out there publicly.
Right.
So you don't know who's looking. Anybody can have access to, anybody can make a profile and look at your profile and look at you.
That's right.
That's why with, my dating, apps in the past, try to put at least information because anybody could look at this. So, I mean, the scariest part about that is, in public, there are going to be certain places that, you don't go and you don't run into certain type of people. When you're online, it's like a free fall. Anybody could contact you and you don't know who they are.
Yeah.
So that's one of the disadvantages of, dating online amongst many, many others. So then let's talk about some other disadvantages because, I know today one of the reasons, one of my hypotheses about why dating apps and online dating has increased so significantly within a short period of time because of smartphones.
Oh, absolutely.
The accessibility on your phone, you can meet anybody and anywhere. I'll tell you an interesting story. One of my girlfriends and me a few years ago, I think we were in Miami, and my girlfriend was like, oh, you should go on POF and see who hits you up because it enables your location, right? So people can look you up in your location. If you're a certain place, your profile will come up. And I'm like, oh, wow, I didn't even know this. Like, there's so many messages from people out here in Miami, right? So it's like, wow, we could get dates right here in Miami, and we don't even have to go out seeking, seeking dates. So, I mean, I found that to be, pretty significant that you could be, you could be anywhere and you can meet somebody. It's a good and a bad thing. Another thing about dating apps that, I wanted to share is that because people have so many options.
Right. That's exactly it.
It changes the way that people commit.
Right. Or don't
commit. Yeah.
Because the second, that's been, for me, that's been the single most negative aspect of online dating. Now, I use online dating. I have, met lots of people on online dating. I'm a huge supporter of it. However, I do think that the biggest downfall of it is that in sort of today's society, there's sort of been we all go for this instant gratification. We go for multitasking. We go
it's part
for
of our
options.
culture.
It's part of our culture. It's part of everything now. And the accessibility of hundreds of people literally at your fingertips. And like we were mentioning, you know, if you have 37 people in your inbox, the second that somebody says something that feels off to you, or that you don't love, or that doesn't jive with what you're looking for, you know, the second something doesn't feel perfect, you swipe left, you know, and you move on to the next, and you move on to the next, and you move on to the next, and you don't have to work for anything anymore.
Yeah.
And, you know, when you think about relationships in the past, our grandparents and our parents, you know, those generations where they got married and stood married, you know, because they had to work on their relationships, because they didn't have 100 other people that they could run and talk to stroke their egos when they got into a fight with their significant other, or when their significant other did something that they didn't appreciate or didn't like. So the accessibility of hundreds and thousands of people on your phone, on your fingertips, at all times, just makes it cheapens it. You don't want to work for anything because you don't have to. You know, if we're fighting, I can just go and start talking to somebody else and make myself feel better, get over it, and we didn't work on us. We didn't fix anything between us because we both just went off and started talking to somebody else to fill that void, to fill that space. And I think that's the single most, it's the biggest draw for online dating, because you have all these options, but it's also the biggest drawback, because what it does is cheapen the relationships that you do build, because you're not invested in them, because you don't have to be, because it's like a dime a dozen. There's
of course,
so much more.
Of course, and people have less tolerance. It's like, you know, they don't want to work things out anymore. It's easy for them. If you meet somebody online, they could easily go back and meet somebody else online.
Right.
Because the options are there, the women are there, the men are there. So, you know, that has become a problem too. Now that people have so many options, you know, committed relationships are becoming far less and less. There's more single people. There's a lot more dating going on.
Infidelity.
A lot of more infidelity. Oh, well, let's talk about the infidelity issue. Because that's something, that's a really significant, you know, I guess, issue with online dating. Because even with committed relationships, long-term relationships, marriages, when something goes wrong, you know, now people have an option of being able to kind of, you know, fill their emotional voids by getting on an app discreetly and meeting people that way.
Right.
And, you know, that is it's totally detrimental for obviously healing a relationship. Because to heal, right, to totally heal a relationship, to work through something, you know, there has to be a certain level of commitment. But when you're committing to things that are external and unrelated to what's going on, the negative things that are going on in a relationship, you're not putting in the effort needed to be able to heal. So instead of working on the relationship that you have and making the repairs, becomes a cycle for people, because then they want to kind of move on, or then they want to cheat, or then they want to, you know, kind of explore their options. It's easier for people to at least explore, even if it's innocent, because people have done that, right? So even if it's innocent, where they're just, you know, putting themselves out there to see what kind of messages they get, to kind of, you know, because they're curious, right? It's just totally unhealthy for a healthy, what a healthy relationship dynamic should do. Because
this wasn't an option before.
Right. It was hard. It was harder.
If you had to leave your house to go meet somebody in your town, you know, at the local store, at the local club, at the local bar, whatever, you probably know them. They're probably your neighbor. They all know you're married. Like, you know, you don't just...
Exactly.
There's no
and then how do you guys keep in contact, right? Because it was more secretive.
Calling
with
your
the cell phones and
answers.
with the digital media, it's like there's so many ways that people with cell phones, you know, they could, you know, kind of, keep in touch, and so a lot of infidelities, transpire via
Right.
online dating.
On a psychological level, it has been an enhancement of our ids. So if we talk about Freud and stuff like that, that's getting a little deep, but the id is the pleasure principle.
Right.
So we're looking for ways to satisfy those drives, those pleasure drives, those sort of innate feelings that we want to feel good. And we've sort of pushed the ego and the superego to the side.
Right.
The moral parts, the justice parts, and all that stuff. We push that to the side because
people are ultimately looking to satisfy certain emotions.
Absolutely.
And personally, I know I have gotten messages in the past from married men.
Oh yeah.
I think that more time, like a significant amount of times.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of them don't even tell you they're married. Right? So it's like easy and then women, I'm pretty sure women do it too. Married women.
Oh, absolutely.
Get online and so through our research, funny thing, statistically, 33% of women have sex on their first online dating encounter. Wow. 33%.
That's
first night.
That's higher than I thought it would be.
That's way higher than I thought.
But
because
now here's my question though.
Yeah.
Because what I'm wondering is this because we can weed out preferences and options before we even send a message. So the people that we're even messaging in the first place already have or possess certain qualities that we're requiring, and who knows how long we may have been chatting or talking. It's sort of like this superficial feeling of connectedness and knowing a person by chatting with them online before you actually date them, so you feel more of a connection than there might actually be. And so I wonder if that has something to do with it. But yeah, that number, when we first read that, both of us were like, wait a minute, what? What does that say again? Like 33%? Like that's way higher than I anticipated.
Well, a lot of people are looking for that. A lot of people are looking to satisfy themselves sexually, and online dating makes it easy if they're straightforward, and that's what they're looking for.
I have no problem with that.
The majority, I'm not okay. This could be a stereotype, guys, and I hope somebody that's listening to the show, comments on the Relationships Unloaded page and maybe challenges this. But right, it'll be a really good discussion. But I'm not the stereotype men. However, I think men would be more open to the fact, to more open to allowing sexual encounters to transpire.
Well, of course.
Women are always...
Society has been pushing that since the dawn of time. We know that women are just as sexual as men. They have just as many sexual desires and needs and fantasies, and they want it just as much. But society has told us from the day we're born to act like ladies and don't be a slut and don't be a thot and don't do this and don't do that and you have to be respectable and blah blah blah. But it is promoted and applauded in men to have these sexual conquests. So, of course men are going to be more open to it or more vocal about it or more at ease with it or whatever. But that number, 33%, is telling us that ladies are, coming up too and saying, listen, I have needs and desires as well, and
I wish to no longer suppress them.
Yeah.
Right? Because sexually, I know that a lot of times women, we have to face the negative stigmas, and we have to face being judged, even if we do choose to, engage in having sex with someone. I guess, I don't want to say for some people, they might view this as prematurely or, maybe a little bit too soon in the getting to know you phase. And then fear that, that's going to impact the way that they view you. Right?
Oh, yeah. I mean, look at what was that, the Steve Harvey, Act Like a Lady, Think Like a Man.
Yeah, I read
that
book.
The 90 days. because a man shouldn't get.
God, every guy I brought that up to.
Oh my god.
Oh my god, years ago. Let's like go back to like 2010 when this book came out. My girlfriend gave me this book for my birthday, and I read it, and I was really like going by this. I was like, no, I gotta wait, 90 days, and they're like, I'm sorry, but I'm not patient enough to wait 90 days.
Oh well, I'm sorry, that is not gonna work for me. But at the same time, like
I've heard that a lot.
Oh my gosh.
I'm like, okay, well, that's my standard. But I mean, but those expectations, right? Those expectations have been made by who, right? Society, our culture says, that if we be true to ourselves, we're going to be less of ourselves. And we constantly deal with that.
And we're not desirable. We're not wife material if we act on our desires and our sexual fantasies and sexual needs, then that's not wife material. And everybody feels like they have to quiet that side of them. But now I'm curious if online dating and these apps is sort of, flipping the switch a little bit, because it sounds like
people could do it. They could be discreet about it.
Oh, I mean, it's been happening, right?
Yeah. So, 33% says a lot.
And that's only 33%.
First night.
Admitted it. That number is probably more like 52% for people that.
You know what, Sarah? It might even be more.
It could be.
It might even be more. Because think about it. That's what the report says. People that are admitting to doing this on the first night. However, society stigmatizes women's sexuality so much that it's hard for us to really admit that we would have sex on a first date. So, I'm pretty sure there's a lot of women that for women that have been in the dating realm for a while. I'm pretty sure it comes up. We're human beings. Yeah, it happens. So, but once again, it's something that we have to kind of we have to find a way as women to kind of deal with our emotions afterwards, because we have to keep it we have to keep it a secret. Guys have sex, they don't have to keep it a secret. No, so
we have to really just have priorities. We have to know what we're looking for and what we want and what we're hoping for and what we're hoping to attain. And if you just want to have sex, there's no problem with that. If you are hoping for a long-term committed relationship, you might have to approach things a little bit differently and just be honest about it. We can speak up and say what we want, and that is part of the benefit, bringing it back to our topic for today of the apps and online stuff. You're more free and safe to be honest about what you want and what you're looking for, and to really kind of say that and be like, look, this is what I want. And I can feel safe behind my keyboard or my screen or my whatever.
Did you set the expectations very very early on, and that's why people ask you when you meet them online, what are you looking for? What are you looking for? Why are you on the site? We hear that a lot if you've ever been on dating apps. Frankly, some people don't know what they want. A lot of people are on there and they're like, whatever happens, right? So, be clear on your expectations, though.
A lot of people are lying to themselves, which is a thing that I have found over and over again. Not just in online dating, but just kind of in general. You have to be honest with yourself about what you're really doing, what you want. People, if you are really just going online because you and your partner got into an argument and you need somebody to stroke your ego for a little bit, be honest with yourself. Don't be online talking about I'm looking for a wife or I'm looking for a husband. That's not going to work for anybody. It's not going to work for you. It's not going to work for the people that you talk to. It's not going to work for your significant other. You just have to be honest with yourself about what you're willing to do, what you're not willing to do, what you're looking for, what you want, what you don't want. And then you can have those conversations with other people.
Yeah, and if one person is not on the same page as you, remember, you got options. Right? You got options.
Right.
Amazing. Well, speaking about, I guess, expectations and what people seek, there are a lot of people that actually get married, that meet
Mm-hmm.
their significant others. So in the last year, 17% of marriages um, transpired from
People meeting
dates that they
online.
met
Mm-hmm.
online. Yeah. 20% of current committed relationships began online.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
And I feel like that's actually lower than I expected it to be too, because
yeah,
I hear it's such a common it's the norm now.
it's the norm. It is.
I remember back when I first started using.
But see, people see the norm for dating. The norm for dating nowadays is
Mhm.
dating apps.
Yeah.
But what this statistic
Oh,
tells
the committed
me
relationship.
is that
That's
because
true.
the options, because of the, listen, so
You're
the
right.
culture that has been created, today's dating culture, right, has changed the way people commit.
Mm-hmm.
Less marriages are transpiring.
Mm-hmm.
However, one thing that we researched, that we found, was that 18, people that do meet their married partners online, the I guess the typical amount of time that they date prior to getting married is 18 months.
Mm-hmm.
Versus meeting somebody in public, it's 42 months.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a difference in years, right? So
Right.
someone will date if you met you, socially somehow, for years, right?
Mm-hmm.
You guys will be connected before there's a solidified commitment.
Mm-hmm.
Versus online, see, and this is one of the pros. If you're looking for something specific,
Right.
and
you can find it.
you could find it.
Yeah.
If you're looking for marriage and you come across that right person
Mm-hmm.
that's also looking for marriage,
Mm-hmm.
it's like, okay, well, we could go ahead and do this, right? So that 18 months, a year and a half.
Right.
So it's good for, right? So I mean, there are some positives about dating, but overall, what the statistics overall tell me while I'm analyzing a lot of this information is that online dating once again proves that commitment is becoming more and more rare.
Right.
And
we started seeing that with just social media in general.
Mm-hmm.
Again, a word that I've said over and over during this podcast is accessibility. You've said it over and over as well. When you have access to more people, you are going to interact with more people.
Exactly. Even on Facebook or Instagram, social media, Snapchat, the DMs, the messages, the randomness.
We've talked about this. All my stuff is private. I can't. I can't deal with that. Like you, if I don't know you personally,
I don't know how these people find me.
I don't know.
I have no clue how.
Goodness.
I'm really dumbfounded how people, will find. But online dating apps isn't the only way that people are meeting each other through the digital revolution. They're also
Instagram,
meeting through social
Twitter,
media,
Facebook, all these things. I've heard so many people say they met so and so off
or it went down
DM.
in their DM. Yeah.
Well,
Now, I want to go back in the time capsule real quick because back in the 60s and 70s, people used to use classifieds to date. Like, there used to be a paper.
Yeah.
There used to be papers, classifieds, a whole section where people would say, hey, no pictures, pictures, but like descriptions, right? Wow, right? So like descriptions, I'm a single woman, these are my measurements, and I'm this and I'm that, or whatever, brunette, brown eyes, looking for a companionship or looking for a marriage or looking for, back then it was usually companionship and marriage, right? Once again, with a lot of strides and, obviously a lot of feminist movements and, women becoming liberated to kind of go for our equal rights, things have shifted and changed where we're now able to date independently and we're able to kind of set our own standards.
And
seek out partners as well. Where, the traditional courtship dynamic consisted of, men pursuing women, obviously for the intent of, marriage. People got married younger, and it was a different world back then.
Yes.
But people met through the paper with no pictures.
That's true.
And now We had profiles where you could find out all this information about
Links to
somebody.
other profiles and other profiles and other profiles.
Exactly.
Send me a pic.
Like on Tinder, somebody could see your Instagram is like linked up or something like that. You know, I remember like I was on like Tinder for like a hot second, but then I was getting all these likes and requests on Instagram, and I was like, where are these people coming from? And then I would get DMs, and they're saying like they see me on. I'm like, what? I didn't even know my Instagram was connected to Tinder, so I was like, all right, delete that account. But yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing. Wow. So
it's come, technology in general has come so far, and you know, I love being able to snap pics with my phone and share them with people. I
do too.
Being able
I'm a selfie queen.
Okay, yeah, you know, I love to be able to do that. I love to be able to, you know, keep in touch with people that I might not keep in touch with other ways, but I can say like, oh, you know, send me a pic and like let me see the kids or whatever, you know, whatever.
Exactly, yeah.
It's a good way to keep in touch, and it's a good way to kind of share things with each other. So there, for every positive, there's always a negative too. And so, you know, as wonderful as technology is, because we have the ability to do these things, to send pictures and to keep in touch with people easily via 30,000 different apps that you want to use.
There are a lot of apps, I will say that.
Yeah, but there's a downfall of it, and the downfall of it is that, you know, things become kind of cheap. You know, it's superficial. It's, you know, I can send you and 7 other women messages saying send me a pic, and I can have 7 pictures.
It's easier for people to serial date from dating apps because they're able to maintain relationships and connections with so many people at one time, and it's manageable and it's easier
with limited effort.
With limited effort, yeah. With limited effort.
Because it doesn't take much. I mean, I could be washing my dishes and send somebody a quick text and be like, hey, boo, thinking about you.
Right.
Face, you know, and go back to my business washing my dishes. So it's easy to kind of maintain this kind of superficial relationship with minimal effort put into it.
Well, you know, I want to wrap up some of the things that we talked about today, Sarah, because I think that we established a lot of good, I guess, key points about the pros and cons about online dating, right? So what would you consider some of the pros?
So I think that one of the biggest pros is that it is a relatively safe and effective way to meet people who you would not normally come across on your average day. You know, for the busy person, we're all busy. You know, this is part of life now. We work, we have families, we have friends, we have social lives, we have, you know, all of these things going on. And so it's a way to easily connect with people that you probably wouldn't run into in any other
Especially
way.
For, I guess, you know, for people that are of an adult age, people that are more mature, that are past that, I guess, traditional dating age, which is in your teens and early 20s. You know, we have more sophisticated needs, and it's easier to kind of still connect and develop relationships with people, right? Or still attempt to find a relationship despite some of the barriers to, you know, actually going out and socializing and meeting these people. So that definitely is that's a good plus. Interesting enough, even though younger adults have way more opportunity to go out and obviously, you know, to go out and meet people, they're the demographic that's online the most. Yeah, they're the ones that are using online dating the most. Listen, that's a generation that grew up with this. They know this as their norm, where we kind of, through the evolution, we've kind of transformed into what is the norm now. So this is the norm now. This is how people meet people.
They literally can't survive without the connections that they have online without the likes and the supports and the followers and this. That's why you see people, and it's sad, there's the online bullying and people taking their own lives because of stuff that has happened online. Today's generation is so ingrained in this online
culture.
Yeah. It is a culture. And it's such a part of, that we were talking earlier about, like, nobody makes phone calls anymore. If you call somebody on the phone, they're
problem.
Like, oh, are you weird? Like, what's wrong with you? Who are you? Why are you calling me?
People text, right? People have text relationships, and I hate that. Like, I'm the opposite, right? So I guess I'm a little bit more traditional in terms of girl. I like, probably because I'm getting old. I got a couple gray hairs in my baby hairs right now, so I'm feeling it. But I like the interpersonal connection, and to me, I'm a person that is driven off of emotion and connections, and I can't connect to you on text message. Like, I can't connect to anybody on text message. To me, I feel like text message is a very straightforward way to be able to communicate certain things that is convenient. However,
it's
to
not
build
for deep conversation,
right? There's people that have conversation. I'm like, this is a lot. Can we talk on the phone? Like, this is a lot. I'm not
writing paragraphs.
I'm not doing that. Like I said, it's like quick. To me, text messaging, this is a kind of direct, quick way to be able to communicate. However, like, there are people that are using messengers and text messengers. Initially, the majority of people, when they meet people through a dating app, right? So meeting somebody through a dating app means that you're typing, right? So you're communicating through type. Right. So then that transforms into okay, now we're gonna text. We're gonna take this to the next level. We're gonna exchange numbers, and now we're gonna text. Right? But when does
that? Just typing.
We're still just typing.
Right.
So that's definitely something that has changed. I think that it's developing some issues with how people are able to communicate in healthy ways and communicate effectively, because there's a lot of miscommunication that happens when you communicate with people through text. There's no emotion there. You can't sense a person's tone of voice, their body language. You don't know.
There's less of a need for closure. I mean, if you and I were to get into an argument, right now, we would probably hash it out until it was squashed. Or at least, it left us in a place where we felt a little bit more comfortable. If we're arguing over text, I can block your number. I can put you on silent. I could go text somebody else. I could do all this other stuff. And we never really resolve things in an effective and healthy way because we don't have to. It just takes away a lot of the... It just takes away a lot of the work. With anything,
people end it. People,
because they have options.
People ghost people.
Oh my God.
Nowadays, so much more because, once again, because this culture has changed the way that people communicate so significantly, people just don't have the same level of connection to people, right? That you would have if you were if you were communicating on a deeper interpersonal level. Right. That usually happens through voice, because that's how people communicate, through voice, or body language, right? Or facial expressions, right? So through those observations. But through text message, there's people that break up, with each other through text message. It's kind of, like I said, this whole culture, it's like it's taken away the value of what relationships, I feel like, are overall really about.
Yeah, and you're right. 80% of our communication is nonverbal. 80%. That's a big number. And in text messaging, there's none of that. So you're missing 80% of what's trying to be communicated to you, because you can't see the other person, you can't hear the other person, you can't touch the other person. You're just...
And so we have like technology today that I think is useful. I'm the type of person that likes video phone. If I am close to someone, because I just think that if we don't have the option of seeing each other, right, we can talk on the phone, but we also have video phone. So I think the video phone is kind of cool nowadays, right? That we have that technology and that we're able to, view each other and see each other and carry on a conversation. Some people feel really awkward doing it. I'm comfortable, right, being in front of the camera. So very comfortable with being in front of the camera. So I mean, I've never had an issue with that, but at minimum, at least talk on the phone. Yeah, people just don't, they don't do that nowadays.
Times are changing, and I was really resistant to the change, and this is, it makes me feel old talking about this, and
we're really not that old.
I'm not that old.
I'm not that old either.
Not that old, so I don't even put that out
Mature
there.
Mature woman, but I'm not old.
That's right. But I was really resistant to the movement into this like really technological world that we have now. And like we were saying, there's pros and cons to everything.
Yeah.
Online dating is it's an absolutely wonderful way to meet people. You can, pick and choose. You can find people. You can connect with people. You can have great connections with people that you met online. And on the flip side of that is also, people have more options. They're less likely to put in work. They're less likely to put in effort because they don't have to. And
because it's easier for them to just say, you know what, whatever. I'm gonna
who wants to deal
go
with that?
online and yeah, but I mean, in relationships, there's no such thing as a relationship where
without
you're not gonna without conflict.
Right.
Conflict is a normal part of life.
Right.
And
you have to be able to work through those to foster.
People don't develop those skills.
Right.
And it just becomes harder and harder as this culture becomes more, I guess, manifested, into the norm of how people function in their relationships, and start off their relationships. It's becoming more and more of a problem because people aren't developing the skills. Having a healthy relationship takes a lot of skill.
Oh my God. And a lot of work.
It's a lot of work and a lot of effort. And our culture seeks out instant gratification and gives us too many options. And if we don't like something, we're just on to the next one. And that's what our culture emulates in so many ways. So, I hope that whoever's listening to this podcast was able to get, some insight into how dating apps and online dating has really kind of revolutionized the way that people interact, communicate, get to know one another, in both positive and negative ways. So,
and to remember that you can use online dating and you can have wonderful relationships with people online, but you have to be willing to get old school with it and put in time and effort and energy and really work on the conflict and not just give up and walk away so easily, because if you want something that's going to last, you have to put work into it. And so, use online dating as your foundation. Use it as a way to meet somebody or meet people. Use it as a good starting point, but don't lose the skills needed to maintain real functioning relationships. And if we can do that, if we can figure out a way to do that, then online dating will continue to flourish and it'll be no problem, and we'll be able to do, people will be able to get what they want out of it. But that's going to take effort on everyone's part.
And just like, with anything else, I always kind of support people in doing this, to be educated consumers about what you're doing. So if you're dating online, to be successful in anything, there's work that has to be put in. So, there's a lot of content out there that talks about online dating. This is one of them. And, I kind of just want to wrap things up and say that, one of the reasons, I chose to really focus on addressing this online dating topic is because it was necessary for me to really, for me to address before talking about other things that have become really difficult to manage in relationships, because it's really transformed the way that people deal with their relationships overall. So, with that being said, Sarah, I want to thank you for being
Thank you so much. We had
a
fun.
guest. Yeah, of course, of course. Guys, you guys could find Sarah, Sarah Phillips, LCSW on Facebook. She's a great therapist, so check her out. For those that aren't following or are interested, Relationships Unloaded on Facebook. That's our page, our community. Also, so follow the Relationships Unloaded community. Follow my private practice page. I'm New Jersey's #1 couples therapist, as you guys know. So, Sonia Singh, LCSW, LCADC on Facebook as well. So, season 1 of Relationships Unloaded is Making America Love Again. And I want to thank you guys for tuning in and, hearing us kind of talk about this online dating epidemic, which has changed the way that America loves. So until next time, happy dating.